Park Jun stood in the ship's kitchen, chopping vegetables with practiced ease. His kitchen knife moved in a blur, decades of skill evident in each precise cut. At 45, his body still carried the disciplined posture of his Marine days, but his hands had found a new purpose in feeding the crew of the Horizon. The news of the VEC Champions Challenge had spread through the ship like wildfire. June listened as officers passed through the mess hall, their voices tense with worry. The mighty Tarek had never lost a fight. With forearms and reflexes 3 times faster than any human, the alien swordsman had cut down opponents across 17 star systems. "We can't refuse," said Lieutenant Seo as he sipped his coffee. "But whoever we send is walking to their death." June's knife paused mid-slice. A thought formed in his mind, unusual but clear. He had watched recordings of VEC fighters during his military days. They were perfect, too perfect. They fought like machines, following ancient forms without variation. That night, while most of the crew slept, June practiced in the empty kitchen. He moved through the motions of preparing his signature dishes, feeling the balance of his knife, the economy of each movement. Nothing wasted, nothing showy. Just purpose. The next morning, he waited outside Commander Kim's office. When she arrived, dark circles under her eyes showing her sleepless night, June bowed slightly. "Commander, I would like to accept the challenge." Kim stared at him. "You're our cook, Park." "Yes, ma'am. And before that, I was a Marine for 20 years. The best human fighters wouldn't stand a chance against Tarek," she said. June nodded. "That's why we shouldn't send our best fighter. We should send someone the VEC won't understand." He held up his kitchen knife, the carbon steel blade worn from years of use but kept razor sharp. "I want to use this." Kim frowned. "A kitchen knife against pulse blades? The diplomatic team will never agree. The rules allow for cultural weapons, don't they? This is my cultural weapon." Something in his calm certainty made Kim pause. She studied the old cook's face, seeing not bravado but calculation. "Explain your thinking," she said finally. "The VEC fight by rules. They've studied every fighting style in the galaxy. But they've never studied how humans cook." June demonstrated a few fluid movements with his knife. No wasted motion. Nothing fancy. Just getting the job done. Later that day, the diplomatic team exploded in outrage when Kim presented June's proposal. "This is madness," Ambassador Lee shouted. "We'll be the laughingstock of the Concord." "We already are," Kim replied calmly. "But Park has a plan." When the decision was announced, the reaction across the station was immediate. Alien delegates snickered behind their breathing masks. Human colonists from other systems sent angry messages about Earth making a mockery of an important cultural exchange. In his quarters, June ignored the noise. He sharpened his knife, tested its edge, and practiced the movements he had refined over decades. He didn't train with combat simulators. He prepared meals. 3 days before the duel, a young ensign found him in the kitchen. "Sir, aren't you scared?" she asked, watching him slice fish for the crew's dinner. June looked up, his movements never faltering. "Of course. But fear is just information. It tells me I'm doing something important. But Tarek has killed people in these duels before. And I've kept hundreds of Marines alive with hot meals in war zones," June replied. "We all have our skills." That evening, Commander Kim visited the kitchen. She watched silently as June worked, his movements economical and precise. "The VEC ambassador requested a meeting," she said finally. "They want to know your fighting style so Tarek can prepare properly." June smiled slightly. "Tell them I practice the ancient Earth tradition of Japanese cuisine. They'll research it." "Good," June said, sliding his knife through a fish fillet with perfect precision. "Let them watch cooking videos. It won't help them." As news spread of the human cook who would face the galaxy's greatest swordsman, betting odds on the station shifted to astronomical levels against June. The crew of the Horizon began placing their own bets, not on whether June would win, but on how long he would last. Through it all, June continued his daily routine. He cooked. He cleaned. He kept his knife sharp. And he waited for his moment. The grand amphitheater on Nexus Station buzzed with activity as workers set up the combat arena. Lights were tested, seating arranged, and safety barriers checked. In just 3 days, this space would hold thousands of spectators from across the galaxy, all eager to witness the duel between the legendary Tarek and the human cook. While the station prepared, June remained in the kitchen of the Horizon. His hands moved steadily as he chopped carrots into perfect cubes. Each motion was smooth and efficient, no wasted energy, no unnecessary movement. The kitchen staff watched him with worried eyes, but no one dared interrupt his focus. Commander Kim entered the kitchen, her face tight with concern. She had expected to find June practicing combat moves or at least studying recordings of Tarek's previous duels. Instead, he was preparing the evening meal as if nothing unusual was happening. "June," she said quietly, "the duel is in 3 days." He nodded without looking up. "The crew still needs to eat for 3 days." Kim leaned against the counter. "The Vec Embassy sent over training facilities for you to use. They consider it dishonorable to deny an opponent proper preparation time." June smiled slightly. "This is my preparation." "Cooking?" "Yes." He set down his knife and wiped his hands. "Commander, may I show you something?" He led her to a small viewing screen and pulled up footage from a previous duel. Tarek moved like lightning, his forearms wielding gleaming pulse blades with deadly precision. "Watch closely," June said. "See how he anticipates his opponent's moves?" Before the human even starts to attack, Tarek is already countering. Kim nodded slowly. "Their neural systems are incredibly fast." "It's more than speed," June explained. "The Vec don't just react, they predict. Their brains analyze patterns from thousands of combat encounters. They know what a trained fighter will do before the fighter does. Which is why we can't win in traditional combat," Kim realized. June picked up his knife again. "Exactly. So I won't fight traditionally." He demonstrated a few cutting techniques, how he sliced fish, chopped vegetables, and minced herbs. His movements were practical, refined by years of repetition. The Vec expect formal combat patterns. They've never analyzed how humans prepare food. Their prediction systems won't recognize these movements as fighting techniques because they're not. They're cooking techniques. Kim watched him work, understanding dawning on her face. "You're going to fight like you cook." "I'm going to cook like I fight," June corrected with a small smile. Later that day, a Vec diplomat visited the Horizon. The tall, four-armed alien requested to observe June's training. "It is customary," the diplomat explained, "for opponents to witness each other's preparation." Commander Kim led the visitor to the kitchen. There, they found June breaking down a large fish with quick, precise cuts. The Vec watched silently for several minutes. "This is not combat training," he finally said. "It is for him," Kim replied. The diplomat left confused, reporting back to Tarek that the human was engaging in food preparation rather than martial practice. Across the station in a private training facility, Tarek sliced through combat drones with elegant precision. His forearms moved in perfect harmony, each strike following ancient forms perfected over generations. He had studied recordings of human martial arts for days, learning their patterns and weaknesses. "The human continues his food preparation," his aide reported. Tarek paused, his upper arms lowering his weapons while his lower arms remained ready. "Perhaps it is a deception. Our analysts believe he truly is just a cook," the aide replied. "The humans may be sending him as a symbolic gesture, knowing they cannot win." Tarek resumed his practice, cutting down 3 combat drones in a single fluid motion. "Then this will be my easiest victory." The night before the duel, Commander Kim found June in the kitchen, sharpening his knife with careful precision. "Are you ready?" she asked. June tested the edge with his thumb. "This blade has prepared thousands of meals. Tomorrow it will prepare one more." "That's not very reassuring," Kim said. June looked up, his eyes calm. "In the Marines, we had a saying, the more you sweat in practice, the less you bleed in battle." I've been practicing for this moment my entire life, I just didn't know it. As the ship entered night cycle, most crew members tried to sleep, though few succeeded. The weight of tomorrow's event hung heavy over everyone. Throughout the night, crew members passed by the kitchen, finding comfort in the sight of June methodically preparing breakfast for the next day. His hands never trembled. His movements never faltered. And his knife remained very, very sharp. The doors of the amphitheater opened 3 hours before the duel. Spectators from 50 different species poured in, filling the circular seating that rose steeply around the central arena. Holographic projectors hummed to life, broadcasting the event to billions across the galaxy. The combat platform glowed with a soft blue light. Safety barriers shimmered around it, designed to protect the audience while allowing perfect visibility. The air buzzed with excited conversations in dozens of languages. In a small preparation room, June stood alone. He wore his kitchen whites, freshly cleaned and pressed. The cotton fabric felt familiar against his skin. He ran his thumb along the edge of his chef's knife one last time, feeling its perfect sharpness. 20 years of Marine service and 15 years of cooking had led to this moment. A soft chime indicated it was time. June tucked his knife into its sheath and walked toward the arena entrance. In the opposite preparation room, Tarek completed his pre-combat rituals. Attendants helped secure his ceremonial armor over his natural chitinous plating. Each of his 4 hands gripped a pulse blade, weapons that could cut through metal with a single stroke. The Vec champion had never lost a duel. Today would be no different. A thunderous roar erupted when Tarek entered the arena. He raised his upper arms in acknowledgement, the pulse blades catching the light. His lower arms remained in ready position, blades pointed slightly downward. His insectoid face revealed no emotion, but his posture displayed absolute confidence. When June walked onto the platform, the crowd's reaction was mixed. The human section cheered supportively, but much of the alien audience chuckled or made sounds of disbelief. A ship's cook facing the galaxy's greatest swordsman? It seemed like a joke. Commander Kim watched from the diplomatic box, her hands tightly clasped. Around her, the crew of the Horizon sat in tense silence. The Vec ambassador stepped to the center of the arena. His amplified voice carried throughout the amphitheater. Today we witness a duel of honor between Champion Tarek of the Vec Dominion and Human Representative Park June of Earth. He explained the rules. First blood from the torso or disarmament would determine the victor. No fatal blows were permitted, though accidents could happen. When the ambassador asked the combatants to present their weapons, Tarek extended all 4 arms, his pulse blades humming with energy. Their edges glowed blue, indicating they were set to wounding rather than lethal power. June simply removed his kitchen knife from its sheath. The plain carbon steel reflected the arena lights. Laughter rippled through the audience. Some spectators turned to their neighbors, making cutting motions and laughing harder. "You dishonor yourself with this choice," Tarek said, his translator making his voice sound metallic. June bowed slightly. "This blade has served me well for many years." The safety field between them lowered. The duel had begun. Tarek didn't waste time. He launched forward in a dazzling offensive pattern, all 4 arms moving in perfect coordination. His upper right blade swept horizontally while the lower right stabbed forward. His left arms performed blocking movements, protecting against counterattacks that would never come. June didn't meet the attack head-on. He stepped sideways, not the defensive retreat of a fighter, but the practical sidestep of a chef moving along his cooking station. His knife remained low, close to his body. Tarek adjusted instantly, his neural systems recalculating. He executed a perfect 7th form attack pattern, designed to trap opponents regardless of their movement direction. But June wasn't moving like a fighter. He stepped back, then forward, then pivoted, motions developed over years of working in tight kitchen spaces. There was no pattern for Tarek's combat brain to recognize, no technique it could predict. The Vec warrior's movements became increasingly aggressive. His 4 blades cut through the air with frightening speed, creating a web of deadly energy that should have trapped his opponent. Yet somehow, June always seemed to be just outside their reach. The human section of the audience had fallen completely silent, watching in amazement. Even those who had supported June hadn't actually expected him to survive more than a few seconds. 5 minutes into the duel, Tarek's movements showed the first signs of frustration. His attacks became faster but less coordinated. His combat algorithms kept failing to predict June's next position. June maintained his calm. He held his knife like he was about to fillet a fish, comfortable, practiced, precise. His eyes never focused on Tarek's weapons but instead on the Vec's body positioning. 12 minutes in, Tarek launched his killing pattern, a simultaneous attack with all four arms designed to overwhelm any defense. It had ended hundreds of duels before. June saw it coming. As the Vec committed to the attack, June stepped forward instead of back. He moved his knife in a simple horizontal slice, the exact motion he used daily to fillet fish. The blade found the small gap between Tarek's upper and lower body plates, a weak point no combat analysis would target but exactly the kind of detail a cook would notice when breaking down ingredients. A thin line of green appeared on Tarek's torso. First blood. The amphitheater fell completely silent. 10,000 spectators held their breath. Billions watching across the galaxy stared at their screens in disbelief. The Vec ambassador's voice broke the silence. Victory to Park June of Earth. For 3 days after the duel, June couldn't walk through Nexus Station without being stopped. Aliens of all species wanted to touch his hand or take pictures with him. Human travelers cheered when they saw him. News feeds across the galaxy played the recording of his victory on repeat. In the diplomatic meeting halls, everything changed. Representatives who had ignored human delegates now sought them out. The Vec, in particular, seemed to view humans with new eyes. June sat in the Horizon's mess hall, trying to enjoy a quiet meal. The door opened, and Commander Kim entered with an unexpected guest, Tarek himself. The Vec champion moved carefully, his wounds still healing. He requested this meeting, Kim explained. Tarek lowered himself onto a specially reinforced chair. His 4 arms rested on the table. I have fought 1,012 duels, he said through his translator. You are my first defeat. June nodded respectfully. You are a great warrior. Yet you beat me with a cooking tool. There was no anger in Tarek's voice, only curiosity. I must understand how. June thought for a moment. Would you like me to show you? He led Tarek to the kitchen and placed a large fish on the cutting board. Combat and cooking are not so different. Both require focus, precision, and economy of movement. Tarek watched intently as June demonstrated how to fillet the fish, the same motion that had won the duel. Your movements follow no pattern I recognize, Tarek said. They follow the pattern of necessity, June replied. Nothing fancy. Nothing wasted. The next day, 3 more Vec warriors appeared at the kitchen door, asking to observe. By the end of the week, June was teaching daily cooking classes to a growing number of Vec students. On the Concord channels, commentators couldn't stop talking about the duel. Military experts analyzed the footage frame by frame. Cultural programs explored human cooking traditions. Suddenly, everything human was interesting. In her private office, Commander Kim read the message from Earth Command for the 5th time. It contained commendations for her and the crew, along with special recognition for Park June. Earth wanted to turn him into a diplomatic symbol, the humble cook who defeated a champion. When she showed June the message, he shook his head. I just want to cook, Commander. You've become important to human-Vec relations, she explained. They're requesting you lead a cultural exchange program. June looked down at his hands, the hands that had prepared thousands of meals and won one surprising duel. I'm not a diplomat or a warrior. I'm just a cook who solved a problem. 2 weeks later, the Horizon prepared to leave Nexus Station. Their diplomatic mission had been extended and expanded. They would now visit 3 Vec worlds that had previously been closed to humans. On their final day at the station, a formal ceremony was held. The Vec High Council presented June with their highest honor, the Blade of Innovation. It was tradition for recipients to give a speech about martial philosophy. June stood before the gathered dignitaries, the ceremonial blade in his hands. "I am honored by this gift," he said simply. "But I cannot speak about fighting traditions. I can only tell you what I know about cooking." He explained how a kitchen worked during busy meal service, the focus, the teamwork, the adaptation. He described how cooking was about transformation and problem solving. "In the kitchen, we don't have time for fancy techniques. We just get the job done with what we have." That's all I did in our duel. After the ceremony, a VEC dignitary approached June. "Several combat academies have offered you teaching positions. The pay would be substantial." June smiled politely. "Thank you, but I must decline. I'm a cook, not a warrior. I used what I knew to solve a problem. That's all any of us can do." The day the Horizon departed, hundreds of VEC gathered in the viewing lounge to watch. Many held kitchen knives, purchased from the station's suddenly popular human goods shop. On board, June returned to his kitchen. He unpacked his supplies, checked his inventory, and began preparing the crew's dinner. The only difference was a small plaque now hanging on the wall, a gift from the crew. It read, "The Chef's Gambit." In the years that followed, the story spread throughout the galaxy. It became a cultural touchpoint, taught in schools and discussed in philosophical circles. Humans gained new respect among the older species of the Concord. And whenever someone underestimated humanity, someone else would inevitably mention the cook who defeated the galaxy's greatest swordsman with nothing but a kitchen knife and practical knowledge. The end. Park Jun had never considered himself special. At 45, his days as a Marine were long behind him. His current passion was preparing meals for the Horizon's crew, particularly specializing in precise knife work for his renowned sushi dishes. When he overheard the officers discussing the VEC challenge, something stirred in him, not pride or arrogance, but pragmatic insight. The VEC understood formal dueling as rigid ritual with specific weapons. What they didn't understand was human adaptability. Against all protocol, June volunteered, requesting only to use his own blade, a well-worn carbon steel chef's knife that had accompanied him across the stars. The diplomatic corps was horrified, but Commander Kim recognized the gleam of tactical thinking in the cook's eyes. As news spread of Earth sending a ship's cook to face the galaxy's greatest swordsman, the Concord erupted in mockery. Even other human colonies expressed outrage at what they perceived as Earth making a joke of the challenge.